What's going on, guys? Peter Jennings. I go by CSU Ram 88 across the daily fantasy industry, and I'm doing another lineup review on FantasyLabs.com. I did not get to do one last week, just a bunch of stuff going on across the industry. Would have been fun. I did take eighth in the Millionaire and if the Ingram TD didn't get called back, I would have won, and if I would have switched to Detroit defense, I would have won. So maybe at some point in time when the wound isn't so fresh, I will go back and review that lineup. But going to take a look here at the Millionaire Maker this week. Didn't have killer results. Had a couple of pretty good teams, but no real sweats. I didn't have any exposure to Doug Martin, which really killed my chances to win. Also had a ton of Jamal Charles in cash games and tournaments. He was my most heavily owned player, so that injury bit me. So if you were in that boat, I feel your pain. Let's review my best lineup, though. I did have one pretty good lineup here. I made some late swaps on this one, so I will talk through that as well, and we'll dive right into it. So first thing here is I had Tom Brady. He was my most owned quarterback in the Million Maker. He was also the most owned quarterback overall, I believe, at 21.2%. Obvious play. Patriots had the highest team total here, and going against Dallas, I mean, just obvious spot. Also love the fact that there might be a little narrative street with the Patriots. They had, a little bit of reason to kind of pile on Dallas here with Jerry Jones kind of talking some bad things about the Patriots organization. So I love that narrative. I love the matchup, and I played Tom Brady here. Justin Forsett as a running back, I used him quite a bit at 5,800. I thought he was an elite play. Going against Cleveland, who's really, really bad against the run. Another thing that I loved here was that I thought Justin Forsett would be heavily involved in the passing game against Cleveland. Really beat up at receiver, the Ravens are, so I thought that they'd rely on the dump down. He did get 4 catches for 49 yards. Unfortunately, he got hurt at the end of the game as well. Could have had another touchdown that Buck Allen ended up scoring. TJ Yeldon, a cheap play here, loved him. He had a great prop. I thought this was a great spot. Kind of disappointing, honestly. He only got 17 points. Really didn't do much damage in terms of yards. Did get the receiving touchdown on 5 catches, which really buoyed his score. But I was really heavy on him as well. I thought he was a pretty elite play. Odell Beckham, this is the guy I had in a lot of lineups. I thought he was the clear choice over Julio Jones for tournaments this week, just because I thought Julio would be heavily owned. Julio was injured, a lot of risk there, and Odell Beckham had a great matchup. These stud receivers, though, all are having hamstring issues. Beckham probably would have had a much bigger game had he not tweaked his hamstring. I think he tweaked it celebrating. No one really talked about it. He had that great running touchdown, then he was celebrating, and then kind of limped off the field and really didn't come back until the last drive where he didn't get any catches anyways. Julian Edelman here. I had a ton of Julian Edelman, had a ton of Gronk, had a ton of Deion Lewis. Those are the guys I had exposure to pretty much all over because I was so bullish on the Patriots. This one I had a stack of Brady and Edelman, and it worked out pretty well. That 59-yard touchdown to Edelman was huge. Edelman is a guy that you have to have exposure to every week in tournaments and cash. Just tons of targets every single week. Only 4 catches this week. I'll expect more than that going forward, but still a great game here for Edelman. Willie Snead, what can I say about this guy? Just way too cheap. I believe he was min-priced this week. I thought that he was an absolute steal. I basically rotated Snead, Hankerson, and Marquise Wilson. Had a lot of exposure to all those guys. Snead and Wilson really paid off. Hankerson put up a huge dud. I was heavy on him across the industry, so that was unfortunate. But Snead's going to be a guy you want to continue to look at. He's really the 1A or 1B receiver in that offense with Brandon Cooks. So continue to look for him. Cool story as well, as he has really played his way onto the field. Antonio Gates. Surprised to see he was 14% owned. Thought I was sneaky with him. I had a good amount of Antonio Gates. Really the only tight end with a huge week here with 9 catches, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's really going to diminish the value of Keenan Allen, who I had exposure to as well, watching that game. A lot of those short targets are going to go to Gates. So look for him. He's the primary red zone guy, and I think he was an elite play. I did not have Carlos Hyde originally. I actually had someone else, and I didn't have the Broncos D, and I saw that this team was starting off decently with Brady. I thought that this team was going to do pretty well overall going into Sunday night, so I didn't have Carlos Hyde and Gates, I believe, in this team, so I pivoted to Carlos Hyde. I believe I had Melvin Gordon and another tight end, and I did not like Melvin Gordon. I thought he was a good tournament play, but I didn't think he was an elite one. So knowing that this lineup was doing pretty well going into Sunday night, I did maneuver this team. So I went to Carlos Hyde. I thought that there was some value there. And he had a good game. He's a guy that's going to continue to do pretty well in that offense. I think he's the workhorse back, and he's going to be a guy when San Francisco's in a good matchup that you want exposure to, especially if he stays cheap. Only 3.2% owned, which is why I pivoted to him, and didn't crush it for me, but didn't kill me either. And then, of course, the Broncos defense. This isn't a homer pick. I've been playing the Broncos defense all year. They're the best defense in football by far, in my opinion. No disrespect to Seattle and any of those AFC West or NFC West teams. I'm sorry. I think Arizona has a good D. I think the Rams have a decent D, but for me, it's not even close. The Broncos are the best defense in football, even on the road here, which I normally don't take defenses as much on the road. It was a great spot against Oakland. Carr, although I'm impressed with him as a young quarterback, he's still turnover prone, and that pick six by Harris was just absolutely huge. So here is my lineup, guys. I will be doing another lineup review next week. Hopefully we'll have something a little cooler than 562nd place in the Millie Maker. But this was my top lineup on the site. And I hope you guys are doing well. Got some cool tweets that people had big weeks with Fantasy Lab stuff. And hopefully you guys can continue to rise, and I'll see some of you at the top of the leaderboard.